9 months until due date, I whispered, placing my hand on my stomach as I stared at the positive pregnancy test. After 3 years of trying, countless fertility treatments, and more heartbreak than I could count, this moment felt surreal. I was Dr. Zoe Chen, 34 years old, and the lead firmware architect at Medutech, one of the most innovative medical device companies in Silicon Valley. The next morning, I practically floated into Medutech's gleaming headquarters. 9 years I'd been with this company, watching it grow from a scrappy startup to a billion-dollar enterprise. My algorithms powered the cardiac monitoring systems that saved lives in hospitals across the country. I'd given everything to this place, nights, weekends, even postponing starting a family until we hit certain milestones. Congratulations, Zoe. My manager, Patricia, beamed when I shared the news. Take all the time you need. Your position will be waiting for you. HR was equally supportive. Our CEO, Marcus Wellington, had always prided himself on Medutech's progressive policies. Family comes first, he'd say at every company meeting. Happy employees build better products. I spent the next few months preparing, training my junior engineers, documenting every process, ensuring a smooth transition. My team threw me a beautiful baby shower in the office atrium. The CFO herself attended, gifting me a high-tech baby monitor that synced with one of our own health tracking apps. You've built the foundation of our entire product line, Patricia said during her toast. We literally couldn't function without your code. If only I'd known how prophetic those words would be. Everything changed when Marcus announced his retirement. The board brought in Lance Benton, a 29-year-old visionary from a failed fitness app startup. He swept through the office like a hurricane, preaching agile methodology and lean operations to anyone who'd listen. We need to think like disruptors, he announced at his first all-hands meeting, his designer sneakers squeaking against the auditorium floor. Comfort is the enemy of innovation. I was 8 months pregnant by then, waddling between meetings, but I kept my concerns to myself. Surely he wouldn't touch the engineering department. We were the backbone of the company. My water broke on a Tuesday. 18 hours of labor later, I held my daughter Emma for the first time. She was perfect, 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and a cry that could wake the entire maternity ward. My husband James and I were exhausted but euphoric. I was still in my hospital gown, learning to breastfeed, when the first email arrived. Zoe, we need to discuss your return timeline. New initiatives require all hands on deck. Lance. I ignored it. Legally, I had 12 weeks of protected leave. Company policy gave me 16. I'd earned every single day. But the emails kept coming. Then, during week 2 of my leave, while I was running on 2 hours of sleep and covered in spit-up, the bomb dropped. Dear Dr. Chen, as part of our organizational restructuring toward a leaner, more agile Medutech, we've determined your position has become redundant. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Your badge has been deactivated, and your company accounts have been closed. We thank you for your years of service. Best, Lance Benton, CEO, Medutech. I read it 3 times, convinced exhaustion was making me hallucinate. Redundant, the woman who'd written 90% of their core firmware was redundant. My hands shook as I called Patricia. The phone rang once before going to voicemail. I tried HR. Same result. Even my company email bounced back, account not found. They can't do this, James said, pacing our nursery while I nursed Emma. It's illegal. You're on protected leave. But Lance had been clever. The termination letter claimed my role was eliminated due to restructuring, not because of my pregnancy. Good luck proving otherwise. The reality of our situation hit hard. The mortgage on our Palo Alto house. The medical bills from Emma's delivery. The fact that I'd been the primary breadwinner while James built his photography business. I'd saved some money, but not enough for a prolonged legal battle against a billion-dollar company. That night, while Emma slept in her bassinet, I sat at my laptop and cried. Not just from hormones or exhaustion, but from the betrayal. 9 years. 9 years of killing myself for that company, and they'd thrown me away like garbage the moment I became inconvenient. I opened my work folder out of habit, scrolling through years of code, documentation, and memories. late nights debugging critical issues, emergency patches pushed on Christmas Eve. The firmware update that had saved the company from a massive FDA recall. That's when I saw it. Buried in my files was a copy of my original employment contract from 9 years ago. Back then, I'd been paranoid enough to negotiate my own terms, spending my signing bonus on a lawyer to review every clause. Marcus had found it amusing. "Such attention to detail," he'd laughed. "That's why we need you." My heart stopped when I reached Chapter 7, Intellectual Property Rights. Any invention, design, or code created by the employee using personal hardware outside of company premises remains the sole property of the employee unless the company files for patent protection within 180 days of disclosure. I read it again. Then again, holy shit. My mind raced back 18 months. The FDA had threatened to pull our flagship cardiac monitor from the market due to a critical vulnerability. I'd worked around the clock to develop a patch, but the office systems kept crashing. In desperation, I'd taken my work home, coding the entire solution on my personal laptop over a weekend. The patch I'd created wasn't just a fix, it was a complete revolutionary approach to medical device security. It had saved Medutech from bankruptcy and became the cornerstone of all our products. And I'd written every line of it on my own computer, in my own home. My fingers flew across the keyboard, searching the patent database. Nothing. Medutech had never filed for protection. They'd been so confident in their ownership of everything I created, they'd never bothered to check the contract details. According to my agreement, that code was mine. I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew would answer at 3 a.m., my law school roommate, Patricia Kim, now a top IP attorney in San Francisco. "Patty, I need you to look at something. How fast can you file a patent?" Within a week, Patricia had confirmed what I'd suspected. The patent application was submitted under my name, with every line of code meticulously documented. Medutech had missed their window by over a year. "This is gold, Zoe," Patricia said over coffee, while I bounced Emma on my knee. "Do you understand what you have here? Every Medutech device currently on the market requires this firmware to function. Without it, they're just expensive paperweights." But I wasn't interested in just shutting them down. That would hurt the patients who relied on those devices. No, I had a better idea. I made a call to Dr. Sarah Martinez, CEO of Medexa, Medutech's biggest rival. We'd met at conferences over the years, and she'd tried to poach me more than once. "Zoe, I heard about what happened at Medutech. Disgusting. Lance Benton is a child playing with toys he doesn't understand. Sarah, how would you like exclusive licensing rights to the security framework that powers every Medutech device?" The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought we'd been disconnected. "You own it. Every line. Send me the documentation. If this is real, I'll have a term sheet to you by end of day." While Patricia negotiated with Medexa, I reached out to my former team through personal channels. The stories they shared made my blood boil. Lance had gutted the engineering department, replacing senior developers with fresh bootcamp graduates at half the salary. Morale was in the toilet. 3 more women had been pushed out after announcing pregnancies. He actually said maternal leave was a drain on productivity, my former colleague Rashida told me, in a recorded all-hands meeting. I made each of them an offer. Medexa is expanding. Sarah Martinez values experience and work-life balance. I can't promise anything, but I can make introductions. Within 2 weeks, 8 of Medutech's top engineers had submitted resignations. Meanwhile, Lance remained oblivious. When tech blogs started reporting on the talent exodus, he dismissed it as natural attrition and making room for hungry young innovators. When industry analysts questioned Medutech's sudden brain drain, he called it strategic restructuring. The real storm hit on a Monday morning. Medexa's press release went live at 6 a.m. Pacific. Medexa acquires exclusive rights to revolutionary medical device security framework. The details were sparse but damning. The technology in question was described as fundamental to the operation of numerous devices currently on the market. Industry insiders immediately connected the dots. Medutech's stock price dropped 12% by market open. By lunch, when the full implications became clear, that MeduTech devices could potentially face licensing fees or recalls, the stock was down 22%. Lance's response was predictably tone-deaf. He posted a dismissive tweet. Competitor desperate for attention spreads FUD. MeduTech's IP portfolio remains strongest in the industry. Innovation wins. But the board wasn't laughing. My phone rang at 2 p.m. Dr. Chen, this is Robert Sterling from MeduTech's board of directors. We'd like to schedule an emergency meeting. Would you be available to join us tomorrow morning? I looked down at Emma, peacefully nursing, then at the patent certificate Patricia had framed for my home office. I'll be there. Oh, and Mr. Sterling, I'll be bringing my daughter. I hope the boardroom has appropriate accommodations for a nursing mother. The next morning, I dressed carefully in my best power suit, the one that still fit post-pregnancy. Emma wore a tiny dress that said Future CEO across the front, a gift from Sarah Martinez. Patricia flanked me on one side, while James carried the diaper bag on the other. The MeduTech boardroom hadn't changed. The same intimidating glass table, the same portraits of former executives lining the walls. But the faces around the table looked decidedly less confident than I remembered. Lance sat at the head, his usual smugness replaced with barely concealed panic. His hipster beard looked unkempt, his designer t-shirt wrinkled. Dr. Chen, Robert Sterling began, his voice grave. Thank you for joining us. We understand you claim ownership of certain critical technologies. Patricia slid a folder across the table. Not claim, own, the patent was granted last week. Every document you need is there, including Dr. Chen's employment contract clearly stating the terms under which this situation arose. As board members flipped through pages, their faces grew increasingly pale. The general counsel looked like he might vomit. This is extortion, Lance sputtered. She created that code while employed by MeduTech. It belongs to the company. Actually, I said, shifting Emma to my other arm, I created it at home, on my personal laptop, during my personal time, because your infrastructure kept failing. According to the contract your predecessor signed, that makes it mine. But you never said. I disclosed the innovation immediately. Sent emails to my manager, to HR, to the legal department. Your company had 180 days to file for patent protection. I smiled sweetly. You chose not to, too busy with lean operations, I suppose. The CFO cleared his throat. What do you want, Dr. Chen? This was my moment. I could have asked for millions in cash. I could have demanded Lance's head on a platter, though it looked like the board was ready to serve that up regardless. Instead, I thought about Emma, about the 8 weeks of leave I'd been denied, about every woman who'd been pushed out for daring to have a life outside of work. I want a seat on this board, I began. I want $12 million in equity, vested immediately. I want a 5-year budget commitment for a new research division focused on accessible medical technology, which I will lead remotely with flexible hours. And I want MeduTech to build an on-site childcare facility for all employees, subsidized by the company. That's outrageous, Lance started. Oh, I'm not finished. I stood, Emma peaceful against my chest. I also want a public apology for the discriminatory treatment of parents, particularly mothers, under current leadership. And I want every employee who was terminated during parental leave to be offered reinstatement with full back pay. Robert Sterling looked at Lance, then at me. And if we refuse? Patricia spoke up. Then MedX's exclusive license proceeds, and every MeduTech device will either pay substantial licensing fees or face FDA recalls for operating with unlicensed critical safety infrastructure. We estimate the cost to MeduTech at approximately $400 million over the next 2 years, minimum. The room erupted. Board members huddled in heated discussions. Lance's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. Through it all, Emma slept peacefully, oblivious to the corporate drama unfolding around her. After an hour of deliberation, during which I calmly fed Emma in the corner of the room, making several board members distinctly uncomfortable, Robert Sterling called for order. Dr. Chen, the board accepts your terms. Furthermore, Mr. Benton, your services as CEO are no longer required. Security will escort you from the building. Lance's exit was less dramatic than I'd imagined. He simply stared at me, mouth opening and closing like a fish, before security led him away. His designer sneakers squeaked against the floor one last time, but I wasn't done. That evening, I posted on LinkedIn. Today, I returned to Medutech's boardroom, not as an employee, but as a patent holder, board member, and mother. 8 weeks ago, I was fired during my maternity leave by a CEO who believed mothers were redundant. Today, that CEO was escorted from the building. To every woman who's been told she's less valuable because she chose to have a family, you are not redundant. You are revolutionary. To every company that thinks it can discard women when they become mothers, we don't forget. We don't forgive, and increasingly, we hold the keys to your kingdom. Medutech will be different going forward. We're building on-site childcare. We're protecting parental leave. We're recognizing that innovation doesn't happen in spite of work-life balance. It happens because of it. Oh, and one more thing. That redundant new mom, she just became an 8-figure patent holder. Never underestimate a mother. We've pushed entire humans out of our bodies. Corporate restructuring doesn't scare us. The post went viral within hours. 20,000 shares, 50,000. By morning, it had been picked up by TechCrunch, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal. My phone exploded with messages. Women sharing their own stories of discrimination. Engineers revealing how they'd been pushed out during pregnancy. Investors asking about my new research division. But the most satisfying message came from an FDA inspector. Dr. Chen, we've been monitoring the situation at Medutech. We're prepared to issue an emergency recall if the firmware licensing isn't resolved immediately. Please advise on timeline for resolution. I forwarded it to the board with a simple note. I believe you need my signature on some licensing agreements. Happy to discuss over lunch. The baby and I are free Thursday. The recall threat lit a fire under Medutech like nothing else could. Within 48 hours, I had a new office, complete with a private nursing room, and a team of lawyers working on the licensing agreements. The terms were generous. I wasn't interested in destroying the company, just transforming it. The real victory came 6 months later. Emma had just started crawling when I got the call from Sarah Martinez. Zoe, I'm looking at something incredible here. Your framework, integrated with our new monitoring system. We could revolutionize cardiac care in developing nations. Affordable, secure, accessible to clinics without massive infrastructure. That's when it hit me. This was never just about revenge or money. It was about taking back power and using it to build something better. A year later, I stood on stage at the Medical Innovation Awards, Emma toddling beside me in a tiny dress that matched mine. The headline on the screen behind us read, Mother-Daughter Team Revolutionizes Global Healthcare. When Medutech fired me for taking maternity leave, I told the audience of hundreds, they thought they were cutting costs. Instead, they cut their own throat. But from that mistake came an opportunity to show that mothers aren't liabilities to be managed. We're assets to be treasured. The crowd erupted in applause. In the front row, I spotted several familiar faces, my former colleagues, now thriving in roles that valued their whole selves. Patricia Kim, who'd helped me navigate the legal maze. Even Robert Sterling, who'd become an unlikely ally in transforming Medutech's culture. Lance Benton was notably absent. Last I'd heard, he was struggling to find work, his reputation in tatters after the discrimination scandal broke wide open. His LinkedIn tagline still read, Disruptive Innovation Leader, but the only thing he'd successfully disrupted was his own career. The technology we're celebrating tonight, I continued, will bring cardiac monitoring to 10 million patients who previously had no access. It was coded at 3 a.m. while I nursed my daughter, on a laptop balanced on my kitchen counter. It was born from exhaustion, frustration, and the absolute certainty that being a mother made me more innovative, not less. Emma grabbed the microphone, babbling enthusiastically to the crowd. They laughed and applauded even louder. My daughter's first word was mama, I said, taking back the mic. Her second was code. I'm raising her to know that she can be both a mother and a revolutionary, that having a child doesn't diminish your value. It multiplies it exponentially. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, at the reception, a young engineer approached me nervously. She looked about 7 months pregnant. "Dr. Chen, I just wanted to say thank you." My company tried to phase me out when I announced my pregnancy. I showed them your LinkedIn post. Now I'm leading a team twice the size with full remote flexibility. These conversations happened everywhere I went now. Women who'd found their backbone, companies forced to confront their biases, an entire industry slowly, painfully, necessarily evolving. As Emma played with other children in the hotel's childcare room, a standard feature at tech conferences now, thanks to collective advocacy, I reflected on the journey. From that devastating email in my hospital bed to this moment of triumph, it had been brutal. But every sleepless night, every legal battle, every moment of doubt had been worth it. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Martinez. "Just got FDA approval for the Rural Clinic Initiative. We're estimating 50 million patients served within 5 years. Dinner tomorrow to celebrate." I smiled, typing back, "Absolutely." Fair warning, Emma's learned to use a fork. Barely. "Wouldn't have it any other way," came the immediate response. That night, as I tucked Emma into her hotel crib, she looked up at me with those big brown eyes that had given me strength when I had none left. "Mama win?" she asked, her vocabulary expanding daily. "Yeah, baby," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "Mama won, but more importantly, we all won." She giggled, already drifting off to sleep, unaware that she'd been the catalyst for a revolution. That her tiny existence had exposed the rot in a billion-dollar company and forced an entire industry to reckon with its treatment of mothers. The next morning brought more press coverage. From fired to fortune. How one mother's patent battle changed Silicon Valley. The article featured a photo of me at the MeduTech board meeting, Emma strapped to my chest, surrounded by panicking executives. But my favorite headline came from a small industry blog. "Remember that redundant mom? She just saved your grandma's life." Because that's what it came down to. The firmware I'd created, born from necessity and refined through discrimination, was now protecting millions of patients worldwide. Every heart monitor that beeped steadily, every emergency alert that fired correctly, every life saved by properly functioning equipment. It all traced back to that weekend when I'd coded through contractions, determined to solve the problem everyone said was unsolvable. Lance Benton had thought he was cutting fat, creating a leaner company. Instead, he'd cut out MeduTech's heart and handed it directly to me. 3 years later, I delivered a keynote at Stanford's business school. The auditorium was packed with future entrepreneurs and executives, eager to hear about the MeduTech miracle. How a company on the verge of collapse had transformed into an industry leader in inclusive innovation. "Who can tell me what MeduTech's biggest mistake was?" I asked the crowd. Hands shot up. "Undervaluing intellectual property. Not reading contracts carefully. Discriminating against mothers." I smiled. All true, but not the biggest. Their fatal error was believing that parenthood makes you less valuable to a company, that a woman with a baby is somehow diminished, distracted, replaceable. I clicked to the next slide. A photo of my home office at 3 a.m., laptop open, baby monitor glowing, coffee cup empty. The innovation that saved MeduTech and went on to revolutionize medical monitoring was created in this chaos. Not despite it, because of it, being a mother didn't make me less capable. It made me more resourceful, more efficient, more determined to solve problems that mattered. A student raised her hand. "But Dr. Chen, how do we change corporate culture when so many companies still see motherhood as a liability?" "You do what I did," I said simply. "You document everything. You know your worth. You protect your intellectual property. And when they underestimate you, you teach them exactly how expensive that mistake can be." The room burst into applause. After the talk, the dean pulled me aside. "Dr. Chen, we've been hoping to establish a new center for inclusive innovation. Would you consider?" "Will it have on-site childcare?" I interrupted. She laughed. "It will now." That evening, I returned home to find James helping Emma, now 5 and frighteningly brilliant, with a coding project. They were building a simple app to track her stuffed animals' medical conditions. "Mama, Emma shouted, running to hug me. Look, Mr. Bear's heart monitor is working, just like yours. I knelt down to examine her work, pride swelling in my chest. The code was clumsy but functional, a perfect start. You know what the best part is? I asked her. What? You built this yourself, on your own computer. That means it's yours. Nobody can take it away from you. She beamed, just like your patent. Patent, I corrected gently. And yes, just like that. As I watched her return to her project, chattering excitedly about adding features for her other toys, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The humiliation of being fired during maternity leave, the late nights researching patent law while nursing, the terrifying walk into that boardroom, baby in arms, ready for war. Every mother has a breaking point, that moment when the world pushes too hard, assumes too much, takes too much for granted. Mine came in a hospital bed, reading an email that called me redundant. They thought they were discarding an inconvenience. Instead, they created a revolution. My phone buzzed with a notification. Another LinkedIn message, another mother facing discrimination, another company about to learn an expensive lesson. I smiled, typing back, "Tell me everything and save every email." Because that's what we do now. We document, we organize, we support each other. And when they come for us, thinking we're weak because we dare to create life while creating code, we show them exactly how wrong they are. The patent hanging on my wall, the one that nearly bankrupted Medutech and launched 1,000 diversity initiatives, isn't just a legal document. It's a warning shot. A reminder that every mother they push out, every woman they underestimate, every parent they punish for having a life outside of work, might just be holding the keys to their kingdom. Emma looked up from her coding, face serious. Mama, when I grow up, will companies try to fire me for having babies too? I pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. Maybe, sweetheart, but by then you'll know exactly what to do about it. Make them pay. Make them change, I corrected. But yes, if necessary, make them pay first. She nodded solemnly, then brightened. Can we make them build playgrounds at all the offices? That's my girl, dream bigger. Water slides. Now you're thinking like a revolutionary. As she returned to her project, adding increasingly elaborate features for her stuffed animals, I opened my laptop to review the latest reports from Medutech's childcare center. Enrollment was at capacity, employee satisfaction had skyrocketed, and perhaps most satisfyingly, productivity had increased by 30% since implementation. Turns out, when you support parents instead of punishing them, everyone wins. Who would have thought? My computer dinged with an email from Robert Sterling. Zoe, quarterly board meeting next week. The FDA is fast-tracking approval for the pediatric monitoring system. Also, Lance Benton has requested a meeting. Something about apologizing and learning from mistakes. Your thoughts? I typed back quickly. Happy to hear about FDA approval. As for Lance, he's welcome to submit a written apology to be reviewed by the full board. If sincere, we can discuss potential consulting work, reporting to the diversity committee, of course. Some lessons are best learned from the bottom up. James appeared with a glass of wine, still fighting the good fight. Always, I said, accepting the glass gratefully, but it's getting easier. Every victory makes the next one more possible. And Emma's already planning her own corporate takeover, I see. We watched our daughter work, her face scrunched in concentration as she debugged her code. The same expression I wore when solving complex problems. The next generation already learning that their ideas had value, that their creations belonged to them, that motherhood and innovation weren't just compatible, they were complementary. You know what the really funny part is? I mused, sipping my wine. What's that? Lance thought he was saving money by firing me, cutting one salary from the budget. I laughed, the sound carrying all the vindication of the past 3 years. Instead, he lost 8 of his best engineers, faced a $400 million patent dispute, tanked the stock price, got himself fired, and triggered a complete corporate restructuring. Most expensive maternity leave in history, James agreed. Worth every penny, I said, raising my glass. To redundant mothers everywhere, may they all own the patents. The doorbell rang, Sarah Martinez, arriving for our weekly strategy dinner. As I went to answer it, Emma called out, "Mama." I added a feature where the animals can have babies, and they never get fired for it. "That's my girl," I called back. "Make sure you document that feature on your personal computer." "Already did." With timestamps. I opened the door to find Sarah grinning. "Teaching them young, I see." "Someone has to," I said, welcoming her in. "Come on, I want to show you the projections for the Rural Health Initiative. We're about to change the world, again." As we settled around the dining table, laptops open, Emma's code on one screen, world-changing medical innovations on another, I couldn't help but marvel at how far we'd come. From a hospital bed, devastated and discarded, to this table where decisions were made that affected millions of lives. All because one arrogant CEO thought a new mother was redundant. His mistake. My revolution. Our future. And somewhere out there, in boardrooms and startups and tech giants around the world, other executives were learning the same lesson Lance Benton had learned the hard way. Never, ever underestimate a mother. We don't just create life. We create the technologies that save it. We build the companies that change it. We own the patents that define it. And when you try to take that away from us, when you call us redundant, disposable, less than, well, that's when we get creative. That's when we get dangerous. That's when we remind you that the same strength that brings life into this world can absolutely destroy your quarterly projections. The revolution isn't coming. It's here. It's wearing spit up on its shirt and carrying a breast pump in its laptop bag. It's coding with one hand while soothing a baby with the other. It's sitting in boardrooms with infants strapped to its chest, calmly negotiating 8-figure deals. It's every mother who refused to disappear, every parent who demanded better, every woman who turned discrimination into innovation, rejection into revolution, redundancy into redemption. My name is Dr. Zoe Chen. I'm a mother, an inventor, a board member, and an 8-figure patent holder. And I am anything but redundant.